There is so much power in being content, so much freedom. I am liberated from being dependent on circumstances, external situations, in determining how I feel, my happiness, my peace. And that is power. Power is, I realize, not about controlling things out there, but power is about not being controlled by everything happening around me. And that frees me to be a master of the self. So I focus my energy on going inward, plugging into my own inner reservoir of peace, of lightness, of well being, just by remembering who and what I am. I am a soul, my natural nature is peace. And as I allow that experience to expand, to fill the space of my inner world, feeling my inner world fill with that experience of well being. The contentment grows. I am developing the power both to not be dependent on the outer world, but also the power to be a master of my inner world. Power to sustain and protect this inner peace. This is the power of contentment. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti and welcome to Interview the Raj Yogi. Tonight's topic is part two, power of contentment. And we hope that you had the experience of contentment regardless of our technical difficulties. At least we did. At least I felt. So I was just actually reflecting during the commentary that perhaps maybe someone on the outside, not studying Raja Yoga, grappling with it, just the journey of it, seems like power contentment is actually like the end goal, but we are trying to get to it without actually something that the foundation. So perhaps maybe contentment can seem quite superficial. And I was wondering if you could share more. I know we talked a lot about that in our last session, but even hearing the word peace, contentment, we spoke about in that first session, it can seem quite passive, and it might even feel like it's just being comfortable with our surroundings. Everything is okay. But if you could share more about, there must be something much deeper that it's what we are going to share or discuss more about it being a power.
Om Shanti. So, discussing about contentment as a power? Is that what? Yeah.
Foundation.
I think ultimately a lot of this is about being able to match up the terms we use in Raj Yoga is aim and objective, but being able to articulate the objective clearly and then being sure to have the right method or aim to match the objective. And for many, the objective are things like quality of life, peace, happiness, safety, security. And the method that we're extremely attached to is about let me control what's going on outside in order to achieve that objective. And when we say control what's going on outside, it's this idea of let me somehow make happen what I want to happen. So, this idea that desires is really mixed up with how we pursue quality of life, peace, and happiness. And where there's desire, there will never ultimately be peace and happiness. So, contentment is the state where I am liberated from desires, not through, and this is where I think things get a little bit interesting, not through denial or asceticism or repression or any of these things, but really through accessing a different source of fulfillment that is not based on the outer world. Um, it's it is kind of, I don't mean to sound cliche, but it is sort of the journey and the end destination. The method is always the same. I have to fill up on the thing I'm ultimately seeking from a source separate from anything of this world. That's always going to be, however we call it, contentment, whatever virtue we use on any given day. That's always kind of the objective. I have to be liberated from desires if I'm going to just maintain sanity or peace, if you will. This world is reeling out of control because everybody wants this, that, or the other thing to happen. These desires are really wreaking havoc. So, yeah, I think it's both maintaining an understanding that that's what I need to do, even though I may not get to contentment until further along, real contentment. At least I need to maintain the understanding or loyalty to that understanding that I have to become liberated from desires if I want to fulfill all my desires, if you will. So it's pretty critical to anyone actually is to have that understanding.
So when you share being liberated from desires, meaning that I must be filling up to be liberated from desires, because some might hear that and say, okay, no desires. There's no me, there's no I.
Yeah, I think we mentioned that I have a source that I'm filling up with that's not connected to anything of this world. Yeah.
It's interesting because even when you mentioned that, it's not suppression, it's not all these things. And now I understand why when this feeling of contentment, it was just a conversation I had over 2 decades ago with someone. And she says, contentment, it sounds like settling. And I didn't understand where that came from. And perhaps maybe it was some sort of derivative of, running away or just something that again is our false perception. So it's just interesting because today we had a chance to listen to, I don't know if you call it an interview or a chit chat, and one of the senior students was sharing in this chit chat about the power of contentment, and she was sharing like if you were talking to someone and you just kept imposing rules and regulations, it's not going to go well, you shouldn't be doing that. And it felt like, isn't it easy to sort of just, okay, I need to do things differently and still not have the power of contentment. So I find sometimes I don't know what it was like in the beginning, or is someone who's in that stage has a sensitivity when they're already there. It seems like a double-edged sword trying to share, okay, it's not a good thing to do it this way, it's going to cause more conflict. It seems like it could really go sideways.
I suppose that any of the virtues can go sideways if I'm trying to demonstrate them without, again, using the method that actually makes them naturally possible. So, I'm trying to create, interact as if I'm a contented soul, but I'm actually not in reality a contented soul, but I'm trying to behave as if I am a contented soul. So, it really is having a clear understanding. There's a lot of re-education, I suppose, involved in all of this, but a clear understanding of what that state of contentment is. And very often, just backing up, contentment is connected to being weak. And so to really appreciate that it's quite an important state to have, to not underestimate it, and to check, do I have other beliefs or attitudes in there that are actually causing resistance to me pursuing this, so that I keep resorting to other methods to try and reach the objective. When you're with someone and you feel they're not doing it right and it has to happen this way and this shouldn't be happening. And so you feel I've got to do something about it. And I'm clearly not that contented soul, but I feel I need to do something about it, or this won't work out well, or I can't be content, or whatever. And I go at it with that energy of discontentment. It might seem like I'm correcting the situation, but I'm actually making it worse. So this is why we say it's a power. It's not weak. It actually makes things happen successfully because there isn't desire. So I think it's worthwhile to take time to understand, even if I don't have it, to at least understand why it's so important.
So clearly, I think souls are still needing a bit more clarification about being free from desires as it's come up. How not to have desires. And I know you were mentioning about, because I'm filling up with something else. If you could share more about that.
If you go to a buffet, when I was young, and very, very active, it's amazing how much food this body could consume. It kind of frightened me, but it was really just trying to maintain the calories. So, but I remember so many times going to a buffet or something like this and really eating. Incredible. But there did come a point where if someone offered me something else, I just could not eat anymore. I was full. I had filled up and I was full. So it didn't matter what you paraded in front of me, it had no influence over me whatsoever because I was full. I think very often when we hear this idea of being beyond desires, it seems like we are in a state of loss, that we're really trying to control ourselves. And again, this idea of rather than that, whereas there's desires, I'm trying to control the outer world. And what that actually turns into is the outer world controlling me. So I want to fill up my inner world, and there's a method to do that. So I'm so full that all sorts of things can be paraded out there, and they do not control me. When I am controlled by the outer world, that is, the outer world determines how I feel and think and interact. I'm very reactive. Um, it's not going to bring that quality of life. It's going to create the kind of world we're seeing today, which is so much conflict and so much insecurity and so much fear and worry and stress. This is a product of being discontent. So to be free from desires, I need to just become full. So, and that's a spiritual journey. And we try, it's been said that we're at this point over consuming. We have obesity issues, we have addiction issues, we are over consuming. We definitely have device issues, that we can't, at this point, people cannot get off their phone. We're constantly consuming because we're empty. And unfortunately, the things we're trying to fill up with gain control over us. So it's just we need more and more and more. We don't actually fill up. So Raj Yoga, or spiritual study, introduces me to a source that actually fulfills me if I have the courage to follow those directions.
Could you share more about the role that Supreme Soul or God plays, or spiritual parent, in terms of filling up in the study of Raja Yoga?
I've been really thinking about this a lot this month because it is about contentment and the amount of competition that God has, actually. Um, so when it comes to filling up spiritually, which is actually the only form of true fulfillment, because when we fill up with things physically, those are perishable. So it will always be temporary. And then I'll just want more. So to really be fulfilled, we're looking at a spiritual source of fulfillment. And it turns out that God is the only source. It's outside of physicality. And so I was thinking about it and experimenting a lot with this. And again, this idea has so much competition in terms of our being almost addicted to physical sources of fulfillment. So we can't fake this relationship with God. It's not going to be strong enough. I really have to be in a stage where I am receptive, able to receive the unlimited supply of sustenance God is providing. So we say I have to be soul conscious. It's very interesting because what he provides is completely invisible. It comes through vibration, it comes through feelings, frequency. But he is the only being that can feed us spiritually, which is where the source of emptiness is. It's a spiritual crisis. So pretty critical in terms of addressing the need of the time.
I know we shared a little bit about this last time about power contentment, what is it for others, and it's lovely when you brought it back to the self. If you can share, like, what does that do? Is it a day-to-day moment thing? When you said it does do things, and perhaps maybe souls are trying to clarify what does it do, because it goes back to our definition of what is success. If you have maybe personal uh, examples like power contentment, what does that mean, like on a day to day moment, um, in a very personal, relevant level? What are souls looking for in terms of what does that power, what is its impact?
In a recent class, the word vibration was used, and I've really been thinking about the vibration of contentment, that this is the power, the vibration of contentment. Sometimes we use the power of purity or the energy of purity. So, it's not trying to sound magical or occult or anything, but really invisible things are driving the show. So I can say something to someone through sound, I can speak some words, but if internally I'm holding an attitude or thoughts or feelings that are exact opposite, that's actually what's going to have an impact. That's what they will feel. They'll say you're not sincere. They can feel the vibe that's in contrast. So I could say to Nora right now, that's a lovely shawl you have. Yeah. But internally, I'm saying, really? Didn't you do better? No, I'm not. By the way, I'm not. It is a very nice shawl, actually. Um, but that she is, she at some level is going to feel the insincerity of my vibration. That's where the power is. Now, the power of contentment, which again is a very pure energy, it's free from desires, and it's the soul is filled. I mean, I guess, and it's a whole nother conversation we don't have time to get into, but to know the number one thing a soul wants is personal value. That is what creates contentment. Everything we're doing, all the desires are feeding into one big desire. I want to feel valuable. I want to feel special. I want to feel precious. That's what we all are hungry for. So that's a whole nother side conversation. And this is where God really excels. He's the value maker. So if I can be liberated from that and just have such a sense of really a deep, deep self-regard, self-respect, self-value, self-worth, that's going to create a vibration. Some call it altruistic, but it's going to create a vibration as I go through the day. Even before I come into sound or gesture, it's just this energy. And that energy is going to create things. So I think it's sort of understanding the power of what's invisible.
Sneak in one last question on for your personal experience. Have you experienced that this contentment side? Maybe I don't know what that would like. Oh, this is contentment, where you just respond differently to a situation where you would, in the past would feel sensitive about, or would get upset about, or um, you know, feel irritation.
Yes, it's definitely something I'm always gauging in myself. Um, and forget about what it creates outside, what it creates inside when you're able to respond from a place of contentment. It's words like gracious, dignity, maturity. It feels amazing inside. That's the first powerful thing to happen, is that you just feel so much better about yourself when you're not reactive, when you're not insulted, feeling insulted, when you're actually able to still be generous, to still be mature, still be kind, still be compassionate. So, yeah, I'm constantly gauging situations. In fact, there's such a hunger to operate with contentment. One of the powers it has is it helps me to reframe things so I don't get stuck. So for example, let's say if I'm really focused on that as an objective, let's say that there is an interaction with someone and I land up feeling insulted or hurt. I'm very affected. It's amazing how we stay stuck there. We just keep repeating why they hurt us, how they hurt us. I mean, it's all desires. I wanted them to operate, say, you know. So, anyways, I could get very stuck there. But if I can remember the feeling of what it's like to have that dignity, to have that grace, and how wonderful it feels, I will get busy saying, okay, what do I need to understand about what happened inside of me so that I can move forward. And maybe when the situation comes up again, I will have done the work to respond differently. Rather than just sitting there blaming whatever and whoever for how I'm feeling, and I just stay stuck. It might feel like I'm processing it, but it's actually not helping me to get to a place where I feel great. And if you can taste what it's like to operate from contentment, it's just so dignified for yourself and for those around you. It's such a wonderful, it's really goodness. So if I can taste that, then that memory will inspire me at times when maybe I'm feeling stuck.
Well, thank you for Sister Judy. Perhaps it really inspires us to really want to explore, experiment ultimately. It does feel very inspiring, very appealing to be able to respond differently. If anything, at least you don't feel powerless. You feel like a victim with a lot of things that go on inside. And so perhaps we'll have a little reflection.
So much of the spiritual journey is happening not when I'm seated in meditation like this, but when I'm walking, moving around, acting, interacting, constantly watching myself, sensitive to my own stage. When I'm seated like this, I can create an experience for myself of self love, self respect, just by remembering I'm a spiritual being, a child of God, and within me is so much potential capacity. And then being able to hold that experience as I act and interact requires a stage of bestowing, giving, not taking. And that's why I have to achieve inner contentment. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Thank you, Sister Judy. And thank you for those joining with us on Instagram and YouTube. And so, just a warm reminder this coming Sunday, so that's December 29th, we will have our New Year's Eve program at Scarborough Community Hall. It's a departure in date and departure in time. And so it will be December 29th, so not December 31st, like we usually try to aim for. It's an earlier time slot, 3:30 to 5:30. And very likely we will not be live streaming. There's been quite a few technical challenges we have there. We do aim to record it and again upload it onto YouTube, and we'll send a notice to the public when it's available. We also have a few changes coming up into the new year. So for those who are actually not in the email distribution list, and starting January of next year, we will not be having the on-site Friday meditation at the Inner Peace Center, and as well as the online on-site Hindi meditation on the Thursdays, just because of low attendance. And so there are new sessions that will be offered. It's posted online right now. So please take a look at that and send an email to the center if you have any questions. Om Shanti.